What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co host, Alex Wilson. And the Senior Bowl is right around the corner next weekend, the 2024 Reese's Senior Bowl. Now, if you guys don't know, the Senior Bowl is a great opportunity for NFL teams to scout prospects who maybe haven't gotten the spotlight quite like some of these other guys. Like when we talk about draft prospects, or like we have been for the past few weeks, Alex, we're talking about the Brock Bowers, the Malik Neighbors of the world. Everybody knows who those guys are. But when you get into the Senior Bowl prospects, sure, there are some big name players. There, Bo Nix is going to be there. Everybody knows who he is. But how about some of these lesser known guys who are kind of flying under the radar, like certain wide receivers that we like in this upcoming draft class that maybe haven't gotten that first round buzz just yet, but maybe after the Senior Bowl they could. Now, the Senior Bowl is a really fun time for NFL draft season because if you look back on the Senior Bowl standouts from the past. I mean, some of these guys have gone on to be tremendous NFL players. One that I can think of right off the top of my head is Puka Nacua. I mean, this guy was really unknown, goes to the Senior Bowl, impresses the Los Angeles Rams at the Senior Bowl. They feel convicted, make him a draft pick of theirs. Now he's arguably the offensive rookie of the year, Puka Nacua. So that happens every single year. You see standouts at the Senior Bowl get drafted because of the way that they played and the way that they interviewed at the Senior Bowl, and then go on to have tremendous NFL careers. So it's really important for the New York Giants, who have coaches on the Senior Bowl staff this season, to keep a close eye on some of these prospects. And today, we want to talk about three wide receivers in particular who are going to be at the Senior Bowl that we think the Giants might be enamored by once they get there and could target in the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft. So that's what we're going to dive into. But before we do so, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? Are you getting excited for the upcoming Senior Bowl? And I want to hear first off the bat your take on a certain prospect that you haven't really mentioned on the channel just yet, but you've mentioned to me quite a few times. I know you're excited about this guy.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Look, the Senior Bowl is always a good opportunity for teams, especially the Giants, with multiple coaches featuring on the coaching side of things, to get first eyes on what these guys are like, not only on the field but on the sideline before the game. Like, there's a lot of details I think go into rounding out a grade on a player. Ultimately, the personality of a player. Are they congratulating their teammates after a touchdown? Are they happy for them? Are they upset that they didn't get the ball? Like, these are all little things that go into not drafting Kadarius Toney. This is kind of like where we see. And by the way, Kadarius Toney's out for Sunday's game with personal reasons. Who the hell knows what that means? But the fact that was thrown into the mix there is like, wow, okay, that guy really was a huge red flag. And the fact that we didn't see that, this is an opportunity for teams like the Giants, who have had issues drafting players that, sometimes are kind of wayward in their evaluations, to get a better look at what they're made of, what their reaction to things are, what their response is, their mental makeup, their confidence, motivation, happiness for other, team spirit, not to mention their physical qualities and tangible traits. So the player I have right off the bat, this is a guy that maybe some of you haven't heard of. His name is Malachi Corley, and I love this guy. And a lot of people, you'll hear every draft class, there's people say, oh, this guy's like Deebo Samuel. This guy, has insane contact balance. This is my version of this, okay? Malachi Corley reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel for one major reason. The dude breaks tackles at an unfathomable pace. Like, if you watch him, his contact balance is some of the best I've seen in this draft class, in multiple draft classes. The way that Deebo Samuel is able to adjust his body to absorb contact, take that kinetic energy and apply it to his own frame and actually, maintain his balance, that is really difficult to do. If you watch, for example, Jaylen Hyatt, if he's hit, he's thrown off his entire body, his body weight, his center of gravity is all over the place, but that's not his game. His game is vertical threats. You're going to talk about Tez Walker in a couple minutes here. Tez Walker's a vertical threat. He's kind of like Jaylen Hyatt in that way, attacks the vertical portions of the field. Really great playmaker in that regard, but I think we have a couple of those guys in Darius Slayton and Jaylen Hyatt. So not my favorite option for the Giants, but this guy Malachi Corley can be used in so many different ways. Most of all, he dominates the screen game, jet sweep, screen game. You get the ball in his hands, and he will make tacklers miss. He will run through first impact, and he will churn out extra yards. The Giants need more guys that lay a beating on opposing secondaries. Why are the San Francisco 49ers defense, why are they so freaking good? Because you come across the middle of the field, and after that first hit, you are scared to go across the middle of the field. Greenlaw's going to knock the crap out of you. They have Fred Warner. Those guys, they beat the crap out of you. That is kind of what Ezekiel Elliott did all those years for the Cowboys. grind out those runs, beat down the linebackers, and eventually they don't want to tackle him. And then he gets away on a big scamper. This is what a guy like Malachi Corley, you get the ball in his hands and he can make plays happen. He can churn out extra yards. There are concerns. This is not a guy that's going to come in and be a day one immediate impact player, but I like him as a developmental player that the Giants could actually utilize in a couple of different scenarios right off the bat. His ability in open space, you get the ball in his hands, scheme him the ball, he will make guys miss. He will churn out yards for you as he improves his route running, learns the NFL system. This is a guy that makes an instant impact because there are ways you can get on the ball and let him work. This isn't someone like Jaylen Hyatt who you just don't give the ball to and like he just runs around, does cardio all day long. Malachi Corley is a guy that, yes, like you can kind of get him the ball very easily on screens, things that are high probability conversion throws, and he'll do the work for you. That's obviously like my take on Hyatt is more so like the Giants did not get him the ball. And, like that was a big concern for both Anthony and I. We don't really know why they were refusing to operate in the sense of scheme plays for Jaylen Hyatt. Instead, they just kind of ignored him at times. Wandale kind of was the benefactor of that because they were doing a lot more short yardage stuff. And then they would take a couple shots deep down the field per game, but offensive line couldn't hold up very long. So obviously we know the correlation pattern there. But Malachi Corley is really exciting to me for those reasons. He can provide instant impact on those screen passes, get him the ball in the open field. He's not a really refined route runner. He's come from Western Kentucky. This is not a guy that's going to step in and like immediately be your WR1. But round two guys really aren't going to be that. Like even the other guys we talk about in this episode, they're not going to step in and be Malik Neighbors. They're not going to step in and be Marvin Harrison Jr. or Jamar Chase or those top end guys. They need a little bit of refinement, and that's okay because it's the upside is there. You see that potential. You see some of them have elite traits. Each one of the guys we're going to discuss have at least one elite trait. And as Anthony, you and I have been discussing, and those second, third, fourth round picks, you try to find someone with an elite trait and then maximize that elite trait. I think Malachi Corley's elite trait is incredible contact balance, some of the best I've seen. It mimics Deebo Samuel's contact balance, and that's something you can work with once you get the ball in his hands. Deebo's not the fastest guy on earth either. Neither is Malachi Corley, but he's got some decent speed, agility, and man, you just go watch him play. Go watch his film, go watch his highlights. You'll see what I mean when I say his ability to absorb contact and maintain his center of gravity is something that's very rare. You don't see it very often at the receiver position. So that's kind of my initial breakdown of Corley. I would like to see him on the Giants. I think he'll have a nice role on a team, in the first year as a rookie.
Yeah, so my take on Malachi Corley is a little different from Alex's. We do differ in some ways here. I see some of the potential that he sees with Malachi Corley. I'm not nearly as high on him as Alex is. I know, Alex, you mentioned potential second-round pick. I don't think he is that. He's listed 93 on the big board for Pro Football Focus right now. I think he's a third to fourth round pick at best. Coming out of Western Kentucky, it's hard for a guy like that to get drafted too early. And quite frankly, he is super unrefined. And I am apprehensive to the idea of drafting these guys who the majority of their production came from screens. So if you're looking at Malachi Corley, he is first in the draft class with 330 yards off of screens, but that's 330 of his 985 total receiving yards in 2023. 1/3 of his plays, of his yardage, was made up on screens, and I don't find that completely translatable, especially when you're considering 4 contested catches. Yeah, he had 15 missed tackles forced. Obviously, we know he runs through arm tackles and he plays like a running back. I love that about him, and I see the potential there. But when your average depth of target is only 5.5 yards and you're not really winning based on your route running or making contested catches, everything is screens. That's where I just differ. I'm not crazy on those type of draft prospects. This is a guy, and I'm not saying that his playing style is too similar to Kadarius Toney, but his production in college and his reasons for being considered an exciting prospect, those are similar to Kadarius Toney. And we've seen a lot of those Kadarius Toneys, Sky Moores, those guys who make a living in college catching screen passes and breaking tackles with a lot of speed and tackle breaking ability. A lot of them don't translate at the next level and become focal points in NFL offenses. So for me, Malachi Corley looks like a complementary piece. I don't think that the Giants are going to be totally in the market for a complementary piece in this upcoming offseason. And another thing about Corley that I think would deter me if I were the New York Giants, I don't view him as the best scheme fit. The Giants don't run a lot of RPOs and screens. It's in a blue moon they run these screens, and oftentimes unsuccessfully they run them. So Malachi Corley, I see the potential like you do, Alex. There are definitely elite traits there, the contact balance like you mentioned. But for me, he's not one of my guys. He's not a guy that I'm super high on personally. But I'll tell you some guy that I am super high on at the end of this episode. But I do want to segue into Tez Walker because you mentioned him, Alex. Tez Walker is a really interesting prospect to look at in this draft because go online, search Tez Walker draft stock, and look at where he's projected to go. You'll have people putting him in the first round of mock drafts. You'll have other people putting him on day 2, and then you'll have other people putting him on day 3. So when we talk about Senior Bowl standouts, guys who can make their money at Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, Tez Walker is one of those players that just screams Senior Bowl because he's a guy who, first of all, he's not even a senior. This is part of the expanded Senior Bowl process where they're bringing in some underclassmen who need to boost their draft stock. Tez Walker is one of those guys. He played at UNC this past season. He was at Kent State the year before. Now, when he was at Kent State, he went up against some top-tier defenses, Washington, Georgia, and he looked like one of the best players on the field against those defenses. But then at UNC, he was good. He was Drake May's best target, but he wasn't an elite dominant player. So again, there's a lot of variability to this guy and a lot of question marks surrounding him, which again is why he needs to crush it at the Senior Bowl. So where I'm at right now on Tez Walker, I view him as a mid-round prospect. But if he goes into the Senior Bowl and he just dominates everybody, wins all his one-on-one reps and drills, then I think you got to talk about him as being a day 2 or even day 1 prospect, like some other people talk about him. So Tez Walker, just to give everybody kind of a quick breakdown on who he is an outside receiver. He's 6'3", 180 pounds, so he's got a little bit of physicality at the line of scrimmage against press coverage, and primarily the routes that he runs are downfield routes. He is a vertical threat. He really is similar to Darius Slayton in a lot of ways, but he has more to provide after the catch than a Darius Slayton, and he does have a lot of quickness in his route running, that those tools that NFL scouts look for. The tools on Tez Walker tell you that there is more than what meets the eye, and he could definitely be developed into a 3-level wide receiver. He could potentially be one of those guys that you run an offense through because he has those traits where he's quick and he's got the lateral agility. It's just about teaching him how to run these routes and asking him to do it, because he wasn't asked to do a whole lot of it at UNC. He was asked to do a lot of 9 routes, straight go balls, deep crossers, easy routes, simplistic, not working against tight coverage. But when he was asked to do certain things against tight coverage and run more sophisticated routes, he did it well, especially at Kent State. So I think that at the next level, Tez Walker is one of those guys. He's going to need some development. He's going to need some good coaching and refinement. But if you give him that, the tools are there. I think that he could develop into an all-around complete package at the wide receiver position. He's not quite there yet, but again, let's see how he performs at the Senior Bowl, because if he goes out there and he's running, just perfect routes throughout the tree, running the full route tree, he's going to rise up some boards and be a top target, I think a priority target on day 2. And one thing to keep in mind, if the New York Giants do happen to land Drake May somehow via a trade-up for a quarterback, they might be really intrigued by the prospect of pairing Drake May with one of his college teammates in Tez Walker. So if you're a big Drake May guy and you really want the Giants to draft Drake May, you might be really into Tez Walker. You might be really interested in the Giants also drafting him. So Alex, I know that you haven't watched too much Tez Walker, and we're going to dive into the third guy in a second. I'll segue us into that afterwards because you know how high I am on this third and final guy. But Tez Walker, based on kind of what I described there and maybe what you've seen in him in glimpses, kind of like one of those players that has the potential to do more than he's ever been asked to do. How do you feel about that, and do you think that this is a guy that maybe could be a flyer for the Giants on day 2 or 3?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Giants have drafted a couple of guys with this similar kind of idea that there's more to unlock, right? Jaylen Hyatt's one of them. Like, we know that there's more to Jaylen Hyatt's game than just being a vertical deep threat. We know he can improve his route running. We know he needs to get a little bit better with his hands. He dropped a couple passes this past season. There's a lot to like about Jaylen Hyatt because of the upside as a third-round draft pick. As you said, Corley could end up dropping to the third round too. There's no guarantee. I know a lot of Eagles fans love Malachi Corley, which makes me think, well, damn, like they're pretty damn good at finding receivers. So, a lot of Chiefs fans also like him. They're like, oh, get this guy in the screen game. The Chiefs love those dink and dunks. Get the guys into open space. Let them run. Those are the type of teams that may benefit. And if like the Eagles and Kansas City fans are like pointing, like they're all flocking to one guy, I'm like, crap, like maybe there is something there. But Tez Walker, of course, like the vertical concepts, love the fact that he's a deep threat as well. Has some good size, 6'2", 200 pounds. Maybe there's a little bit more room to grow in terms of his overall strength. So there's a lot to like in terms of NFL measurements. This is like if you look at his strengths and weaknesses, they're literally like one for one, sounding like Jaylen Hyatt. Vertical threat, ball tracking, sure-handed, NFL height weight. It's like concerns, route tree, route running, release package, hip stiffness. It's like literally exact same things we heard of Jaylen Hyatt coming out. So I think that, if the Giants think that he can get stronger and more physical and be able to be a little bit more, physical in terms of intermediate routes and not just be this deep threat, maybe there's something they can do in terms of pairing him. Maybe he could be a replacement for Jaylen Hyatt, or sorry, Darius Slayton. If the Giants wanted to move on from Darius Slayton and trade him, or maybe he wants to be traded, 1 year deal left, 1 year left on his deal. Maybe Tez Walker's a really nice piece to replace him long term. Maybe that's where they'd look. But again, I don't see the WR1 upside here. I think he's more of a WR2 complementary upside type of guy. But the next guy that you're going to talk about, this dude has WR1 upside. This dude actually could be
Oh, yes.
something special. So I'll let you get after that.
Yeah, so the third and final guy, I've talked about him sparingly on the channel, but I'm glad that I get to sink my teeth into it and really discuss him at more length. It's Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. Now, this is a player who, to me, Alex, is a one-for-one carbon copy clone of DK Metcalf. Just watch him play. And what I will say to fully encompass the potential of a guy like Xavier Legette, look at this one play that he had. He took a slant route. It was about 7 yards upfield. He ran it from the left side, caught it on the right hash. Then he turned upfield and clocked in at 23 miles per hour en route to a touchdown. Outran the entire defense. Now, if I'm telling you that a player ran 23 miles per hour, you're probably thinking, all right, he's like 5'11", 180 pounds. No, this guy is 6'4", 225 pounds of pure muscle. He looks and plays exactly like DK Metcalf. I love watching Xavier Legette play, and so I'm glad that you opened up with Xavier Legette, Alex, and mentioned this guy does have WR1 potential, and that's even reflected in his route tree. Like, he catches screens, he catches short routes, he goes deep. He has a route tree at all three levels, and that's evidenced by his PFF grades. He had 25 receptions from 0 to 9 yards, 20 receptions 10 to 19 yards, and 13 receptions on 20 plus yards, and 13 screens he caught. So he does it at all three levels. On top of that, he averaged 8 yards after the catch per reception on screen passes, and he had a 6.6 average on yards after the catch per reception. So this guy isn't even like a big body possession receiver. You think about a lot of these 6'3", 225-pound players. A lot of them catch the ball and they don't provide much after the catch. Like we've talked about Michael Pittman, Alex, as a potential target in free agency. He's not adding much after the catch. Xavier Legette's not one of those players. Like, he can move, he makes people miss, and that's why I think the DK Metcalf comparison makes so much sense. I've seen other people compare him to Deebo Samuel in a larger body. I've seen people compare him to A.J. Brown. I like the Metcalf comparison because he does run these routes at all three levels, but when he's going vertical and he's running with a full head of steam, nobody catches this guy, and he's got enough physicality to make a catch and do some things after the catch. So when we're talking about players who are flyers in day two, like if Legette is there on day two, this is a player that has that upside to be a focal point in an offense, run every route, and do everything you need him to do from day one. I really do see that potential with Xavier Legette. Now, why isn't he going to go in the first round? Well, he didn't play it in LSU. He didn't play it at an Alabama. He played at South Carolina for the Gamecocks, who were really bad this past season, right? Like, he's not one of those players that dominated at the collegiate level. But the competition that he faced out in the SEC, he played really well, and he made a lot of big-time plays. He can make contested catches, but he also runs really good routes and separates. He's really got a complete package and a skill set here, so up at the Senior Bowl, or down at the Senior Bowl, rather, in Mobile, Alabama, Xavier Legette, I think, is going to turn a lot of heads, open a lot of eyes, and maybe push his way into a first-round draft stock, but if not, he's kind of a fringe day 2-3 player right now on a lot of boards. I think he's going to lock himself in and could potentially be the New York Giants pick at 39 overall if they hold on to that second-round pick and don't go with a playmaker in the first round. So Xavier Legette, Alex, I want to hear your take on him. You know how high I am on him. I think he's a DK Metcalf clone, and even if you're not trying to do the pro comparison thing, the kid's just got a special skill set, runs all the routes, does things after the catch, super physical. I love this prospect.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go in terms of pro comparisons, mine would be A.J. Brown. I think this dude has that downfield quality. Like, he's a big boy. You see him, like, he's a big ass guy. And like you said, he's got a DK Metcalf frame, but A.J. Brown, like that downfield contested catch merchant. But the one thing I noticed of his that I really like is he has an extra gear that when he gets the ball, he turns it on. Like he turns that extra gear on. He can pull away from DBs. If he gets open and he has a yard of separation, he can pull away from them for a touchdown. Like he's that type of talent. But I love the physicality there. He's got good speed, good measurements. Like you said, coming from USC, obviously not exactly where you be favoring him in terms of like Malik Neighbors comparisons, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State, LSU's. But again, like I could see him going in the first round. I could see him going in the back end of the first round. This is a dude like if the Eagles were like, yeah, you know what? Let's trade AJ Brown and then draft Xavier Legette in the bottom of the first round. I could see that happening. Like I could straight up see that as something they could do because I know AJ Brown was a little bit frustrated at the end of the season. Who knows how that goes? I don't think they'll do that, but you never know. We've seen crazier things. The Tennessee Titans traded him away and then, ended up drafting Trey Burks, and that did not work very well. So, I think a team's going to fall in love with a prospect like this. Obviously, Senior Bowl offers a lot of teams a chance to get eyes in a more professional setting with better talent around him. So if he blossoms, if he looks good there, his stock is going to go crazy. Like his stock is going to rise exponentially over the next couple of months leading up to the draft because he has all the tools, right? Like people say like, JJ McCarthy has all the tools. Xavier Legette has all the tools and he produced. So it's like, you can actually see like he's applied those tools into actual numbers and production, which is why I think his draft stock will rise even higher. I mean, being that JJ McCarthy's a quarterback, his stock will rise no matter what. But Legette's a really interesting player. I like this a lot. He is tough as hell. He has that energy, that spark about him when he makes a big play. He jumps up and he's excited. He celebrates. Like this is the type of kind of mentality the Giants need, someone that's going to, make the other team aware that he's dominating them. You know what I mean? Like, I like that about players. That's kind of a reason why I like Malachi Corley, because he catches passes and he bounces up and he freaking celebrates. Like, he gets excited and energetic. The Giants need more guys that are going to be like, I freaking dominated your ass. Like I put you on watch. I put your ankles in the dirt. Like that's what I want from these Giants receivers to show that they are capable of dominating and then rubbing it in their face, because like that's really what great players do. And the Giants have a lot of guys who don't get the ball enough to even do that, or they have a lot of humble guys, and I'd love to see some more energy on the football field sometimes. Guys that will make a big play and jump up and get excited, and people will rally around that energy and people will follow that lead. Xavier Legette kind of has that. You see, like he breaks away on a big touchdown and he's celebrating on his way to the end zone. Like I love that. Maybe John Mara may not like that very much, but I'm sure he'll like it a lot in Arlington when he's beating the crap out of Dallas. So, Jerry Jones's face is absolutely distraught. So like that's that type of stuff I want to see. You know what I mean? I love that energy. Athletic ability is certainly there. He's 6'3", 227 pounds. I mean, good God, the guy's massive. The weight, the speed, he's probably going to test out of his mind out of the combine in terms of his athletic profile. So yeah, I would like to see this. The only thing I will say is like, the major concern will be like his advanced route tree. I think that, you're going to see teams probably use him in a certain way, but he'll get better. Like none of these guys are refined immediately. I think, obviously you like Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Romeo Odunes have a lot better route trees coming off the, like right out of the collegiate level. Legette has a little bit of development to do there, but the upside is tangible. Like you can see it. Like it's all over the film. It's all over, his written reports. Like he has the capacity to be a WR1. He's an instant day one starter as like probably a WR2. And then you can ask him to keep his growth going until he develops into that WR1. The Giants don't need a WR1 immediately per se. Like they're not going to, look, Neighbors probably is that guy if you want to go like WR1 immediately. But Anthony, is there a world where like we cut Darren Waller, we draft Brock Bowers, and then draft Xavier Legette, and then you throw money at the offensive line, and you have a receiver with that type of upside and a tight end, and I think we should do a film review on Brock Bowers, because like I've really been getting more convinced lately that this dude could change everything for our offense, any offense really. Like he is the next big thing at tight end. He has some of the best route running in hands I've ever seen at the tight end position. It's actually insane. And his speed and athleticism is ridiculous. And he is a bulldozer, man. Like he's not the biggest tight end in the world, but the guy goes 110% effort every single down, whether you're up by 30 or down by 30. He is the same exact player. And we've seen players take plays off in the past for the Giants. This guy he's that mentality guy. You know what I mean? Like people rally around that type of mentality. So he's a leader. We'll do more on him. I know a lot of people like him as well, but man, if we walk through with Brock Bowers and Xavier Legette, first, second rounds, yes, two prominent offensive pieces and then we invest money in the offensive line, our team could look a lot different. Again, like that doesn't address the quarterback position, but I don't know how we're really going to do that in this upcoming draft class based on the fact that the top 3 guys are probably going to be off the board.
Yeah, I feel like you're baiting me here, Alex, because you just threw like 2 of my guys at me and are like, wouldn't you love to get these 2 guys that I know you're super obsessed with, Anthony? Like, yeah, obviously I would love to get Brock Bowers and Xavier Legette. I think Xavier Legette is a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Like, I'm convicted enough. I don't care if that's a bold take. I don't care if it's too soon to say that. Like, that's how I feel. I've watched his film. I watched every game that he played this past season, all 22. Like, I'm not talking about highlights because I'm talking about I watched the film on him. I think he's a WR1 in the NFL. I see all the potential, and I think that, sure, maybe because he played for the Gamecocks, he might need a little bit of time to develop. Not really, though. I think he's stepping in as a WR2 day 1, and he's developing into a WR1 by the end of his first season. I seriously feel that convicted and that high on Xavier Legette. Like, he is one of my favorite prospects in this draft class. I know a lot of people have them as their WR10. Yeah, he was a late breakout. It took him until his 5th season in college to break out. Okay, I understand that. A lot of people have him as their WR10. I have him as my WR5, and I think that he is a first-round grade prospect, but we'll see where he goes at the end of the day. But if he's there at the top of the second round, you guys have to understand where I'm going to be coming from when I'm tweeting constantly about how I'm on my hands and knees praying for Xavier Legette to be drafted at 39 overall to the New York Giants, because I'm so convicted on this guy. And I hope that you guys are too. I hope that when we get to draft season, or even when we get to the Senior Bowl next week, Alex, obviously we'll do some recaps, like here's some risers, here's some fallers, here's some guys we heard the Giants were interested in. Xavier Legette, he's going to be one of those risers. I'm putting money on it. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be one of those players that just stands out at the Senior Bowl. Physically, he's more dominant than everybody else there, but he's also technically refined as a route runner. He's going to stand out, and I think that he's going to do himself a lot of favors on his draft stock next weekend. So Legette, Bowers, if the Giants walked away with both of those guys, I would be over the moon. Yes, I'd have a shred of disappointment in me because I think they really need to draft a quarterback. But if it doesn't shape out that way, like that is my best case scenario, is landing 2 elite playmakers in the first 2 rounds. I would just be over the moon with that. This is a Giants offense, guys, that averaged, 15 points per game this season, Alex? It was just abysmal. We know that at one point they were averaging 11 points per game. They were, for like 4 weeks in the season, historically the worst NFL offense ever. And you're talking about a 100-year league here that used to have guys running, and they didn't even have a forward pass in the NFL at one point. The Giants were that bad. So they have to do something. And I know a lot of it was coaching. I know a lot of it was offensive line play, but they still need more talent in that playmaking group. Like, they got to add some X factors out there. Look at all the best offenses in the NFL. They all have at least one X factor. And I don't even want to hear anybody say, oh, Mahomes doesn't have elite receivers. Rashee Rice is better than anybody on the New York Giants right now, in my opinion. And they still have Travis Kelce, guys. It's like, he's a receiver and a tight end. He does it all. Even though he hasn't had the best season, he's still Travis Kelce. Teams game plan for him. Teams are not game planning for Darius Slayton, guys. They're just not. And I'm a big Darius Slayton fan. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. So I'll just say I think that the Giants have to find an elite playmaker in the first 2 rounds of this draft. Whether they go with Bowers, then Legette, sure, that's great. If they just go with one or the other, I'm still going to be thrilled, and I think it is a necessity for them to add an elite playmaker in this class. But again, Xavier Legette, guys, look him up, read about him, watch him. You're going to fall in love with him just like I am. We'll do film breakdowns on Brock Bowers. We'll probably do one on Xavier Legette as well on this channel. So, of course, stay tuned to Fireside Giants. We got a lot of breakdowns coming soon. I know you guys really enjoyed my live film breakdown on some of those quarterback prospects the other day. I plan on doing many more of those leading up to draft season. So stay tuned and make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topics down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.